everyone, and thanks for joining me for yet another impactful and informative session on Armor Radio Communications. The program is Dimensions in the Geopolitical Economy, and your anchor is Abiodun Abari. I'm here to ensure that you get the best analysis and insights that concerns the dimensions of the happenings, the intrigues, the maneuvers in the geopolitical economy. To aid your organizations make informed decisions in an increasingly intertwined and connected world. Helping you stay ahead of competition and ensuring proactive safeguards against supply chain disruptions occasioned by conflict, policy, or geopolitics. We're so very consistent with our vision at Armorgate in enabling the transformational leadership in the nations across the world. Once again, it's great having you. Last time out, we were able to look at President Trump's joint address to the American legislature and geopolitical ramifications. So, aside the drama in the House, especially by the expulsion of Al Green, Congressman Al Green, Democratic congressman, and of course the going by Democrats, and not even acknowledging when the 13-year-old cancer survivor was rewarded with civil service enrollment, and of course and other issues of national concern that I feel that the Democrats actually let that moment pass, and they should have been able to seize the moment and showed Americans that there's a limit to politics, and of course that national interest supersedes all that, and humanity, which they always try to sort of propel. Having a moral high ground. Of course that's something that is cultural to the Democrats. So, and then I feel that it's not consistent with their identity as the party for the working class, the party for the common person, the common American, so to speak. So aside all the drama, of course, we try to look at what the implications of the golden age of America as the surging of the American dream, bigger than ever before, as being propagated by President Trump and his team. Okay, and looking at his anti-DEI policies and the effects of the ban of biological men in female sports. We're looking at that in perspective today when we try to look at preparations towards the LA 2028 Olympics, preparations in terms of cultural shifts as expressed by the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, in his podcast with conservative leaning Ben Shapiro recently. So the disengagement from the World Health Organization, which will be the second time President Trump is doing that. He did that during the first time too. And of course the energy sector, the oil extraction galore, the drill in order to reduce inflation, and the effect on that on oil prices. His intention is to bring down oil prices so as to reduce inflation in the United States, and by reducing oil prices, of course, we also affect the budgets of the national budgets of countries that depend on oil exports to fund their ambitions as a nation. Okay, countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar might have to rationalize their sporting ambitions, and in order to accommodate those changes, or seek other avenues for funding, of course, that are available to them as a nation. And of course a country like Nigeria that is largely dependent on export for its foreign exchange, and we of course we have to look at other options, maybe cutting waste, cutting spending, abuse, reducing fraud in government, and of course trying to rationalize costs so that the deficit in the budget can be reduced. because I think falling oil prices is something that might become inevitable at some point in President Trump's tenure, in Trump 2.0. And of course, talking about the golden card for immigrants, all right, trying to lure wealthy foreigners, so that they can buy residency permits. All right, talking about targeted immigration, and of course that is in America's national economic interests, trying to draw investment into America and trying to expand the economy, so that people can get more prosperous. So of course, talking about illegal immigration, all right, so we have record low illegal border crossings, and which he coined the great liberation of America, all right. And he also boasted about the capture of the terrorist leader who was responsible for the suicide bomb attack during the Afghan withdrawal, in which 13 United States military service members were killed and others mutilated or wounded. And of course, that I mentioned that this time Trump 2.0 is a good time for Nigeria and other countries in the Sahel and other countries who are fighting terrorism. They can actually cooperate with the United States as a government and try to limit and expunge terrorism from their terrains. Okay, so because Trump has zero tolerance for terrorist activities and will not put any other consideration, any other geopolitical interest above terror. I mean, as far as his actions in the past and currently has proved. Okay, so also talking about the incursion into the Greenland in terms of rhetorics, all right. So and all that is try to reduce the influence of Russia in the Arctic Circle, because I always say that Russia is the only superpower in the Arctic Circle, because with their nuclear icebreaker they are the only superpower being able to exploit the resources in the Arctic Circle as it is now. And Donald Trump is trying to narrow that edge by trying to regain influence for the United States in Greenland, so to speak, and trying to so we will need to engage Denmark, okay, in order to achieve anything in that direction. And of course, they also touted the current successes, the gains that they have made in terms of the Panama area, the Panama Canal area, so to speak, okay, and how BlackRock will be actually buying up Chinese interests in the port infrastructure in Panama, all right. And of course, previously we talked about Panama's pullback from the Belt and Road Initiative, the Chinese initiative, and the program to boost shipbuilding in the United States, because I always talk about China's being at the forefront of ship production, and the United States have been able to meet up with the level of production the past few years when it comes to naval infrastructure, when it comes to naval hardware, and Mr. Trump understanding this is announcing the programs to be implemented to narrow this edge, okay. And I also talked about a potential conflict in the South China Sea, if hypothetically that the United States might not be able to prevail over China, as it were, because of the level of readiness, there's a level of preparedness. And that is the reality from the data and the physical evidence. So, subsequently too, we're talking about the Taiwan, the debacle, because it's also a future area for geopolitical conflict. In that, President Xi Jinping has ambitions, to unite Taiwan with mainland China, to reunify rather Taiwan with mainland China. So, and that is something that might cause for geopolitical conflict, because even the current Taiwanese leader is not China leaning. Okay, is anti-China, so to speak. So, and if Taiwan goes on with nationalistic ambitions, that might be a potential conflict terrain. I mean, geopolitical conflicts. Okay, and what happens is Taiwan is very crucial. When we talk about the production of semiconductor chips, producing having the largest, being the largest market, largest producer of semiconductor chips, globally. So, and the United States and the technology world depend a lot on semiconductor chips from Taiwan. So Taiwan in the geopolitical economy is strategic, and that might just be a potential area of conflicts if it's not well managed. When talk about the stakeholders, China, Taiwan itself, Europe, and the United States. Okay, so these are talking about all the countries that have the potentials, the resources, the wherewithal to engage in geopolitical conflicts. So I'm also talking about ambitions to put a flag on Mars, and beyond that, of course, that is having Mr. Elon Musk an integral part of that, and talking about tariffs on Canada, Canadian and Mexican goods, and of course Chinese goods. Look at the impact of all that on the geopolitical economy, with the retaliations, of course, especially from Canada in terms of electricity, and Mr. Trump shouting foul, okay? And doubling down and promising to even retaliate even further. And of course, we talked about the Russia-Ukraine conflict dynamics, and the letter you received from Zelensky, the Ukraine's leader. And I read an excerpt and reanalyzed, and I said that, of course, the United States president, his agenda, if it's a peace agenda, if it's a war agenda, that agenda has the highest probability out of all agendas to prevail, because the United States president for now has the most significant resources to influence world peace or otherwise. And since Mr. Trump is exposed to peace, I said that eventually that this agenda will prevail, but at what cost, within what time frame. And we talked about the back and forth that happened in the press conference in the Oval Office right after. And as it is now, there are reports there were reports late yesterday indicating that Russia is being waited upon to agree to an initial 30-day ceasefire deal as part of a longer peace agreement. Okay, so the importance of the initial ceasefire deal cannot be overemphasized. And when Secretary Marco Rubio was pressed on the details, he simply replied, "Stop shooting." That's just the message, right? Ceasefire, stop shooting. So the killing stops, the carnage stops, and Ukraine has already agreed, and Zelensky using Saudi Arabia for talks with Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, the seventh son of King Salman. And is there with the American team of negotiator extraordinaire Steve Witkoff, National Security Advisor Mark Waltz, and of course Secretary of State super brilliant Marco Rubio, seeking peace. All right, so that also we have Ukrainian officials too. Right. So despite the forces of war doubling down, on their position in the last 1 week, so a ceasefire is imminent and as a forerunner of a lasting peace agreement, and that is very, very good news for the geopolitical economy. And I think markets, global markets, should react to that. And so I mean, despite the escalation on both sides, and in the last 1 week, and even the non-cooperation of European countries towards the Trump peace plan, and you had the Russian assault in Kursk. Kursk region is a region where Ukraine is occupying in Russia. Last year, remember when we called the incursion into Kursk. Okay, so Russia. Ukraine is also occupying some territory in Russia, and we talked about that. Maybe that that action was not crucial to the conflict, and it was not. It was even away from the front lines, and maybe it was to create some sort of a diversion, to induce Russia into diverting military resources to Kursk, so as to reduce the effectiveness on the front line, where they were actually winning against the Ukrainians, according to irrefutable evidence. And of course, the Ukrainian drone rain on Moscow, that escalation on both sides presented a twist in the path in that journey to the Russian-Ukraine settlement. So I believe that Europe should be more pragmatic in its approach to geopolitics. Should be more realistic in whatever it does, because all great powers always put their interests and their national security as a paramount. So if European leaders are disappointed that the United States is not prioritizing Europe's interests in dealing with Russia, that for me might be politically naive, geopolitically naive, because the United States, as a great power, is supposed to prioritize its own interests, right? And that is just the realm of political realism, the political pragmatism. And this Russian-Ukraine war was a very, very preventable war. The warnings were there against the expansion of NATO towards the east, towards Russia's border, and there were assurances by NATO, by United States leaders, Bill Clinton, that there was not going to be expansion. And although the Russian invasion is wrong, it's not, it's inexcusable, it's condemnable, but it could have been prevented. Had Europe be more pragmatic geopolitically, I look at the Russian-Ukraine war as a result of the geopolitical failure of Europe. So Europe should come to terms that changing one's neighbors in a geopolitical context, might be somewhat extremely challenging. So it is they who will be geopolitical, and they will be geographical neighbors to Russia for maybe centuries to come, and are expected to operate in a way that reflects that reality, because Russia is a superpower. Technology-wise, military-wise, they may not have the numbers economically, but their defense capabilities have been proven over time, from Napoleon's invasion to Hitler's Second World War. Stalingrad comes to mind, the intricacies of urban warfare, the tenacity, the astuteness involved. So Russia might not be going anywhere soon, or might not be becoming weak militarily. So from projections, they are expected to continue to be stronger militarily, and implementing ambitious and innovative defense policies, programs, and agenda. So Russia's security concerns should have been taken into consideration and addressed pragmatically. By addressing these concerns pragmatically, the way the United States will not allow Russian missiles or military hardware in Mexico or Canada. I believe that these concerns are legitimate, and the Europeans in NATO should have been should have been front and center when it comes to NATO keeping its word of not expanding towards the Russian border. But does NATO keep its word? Libya's Gaddafi comes to mind, despite assurances that NATO was seeking regime change in Libya. Missiles were fired from the Mediterranean by a NATO country submarine on the presidential palace in Tripoli, killing one of Gaddafi's sons, and Gaddafi himself was in the bunker. So the Russians were very clear that continuous expansion of NATO towards its borders were not acceptable. So European leaders ignored these Russian concerns and continued to push for NATO's expansion. So I think that is geopolitically sort of naive to think that the United States will always act in Europe's best interests, especially when those interests conflict with those expressed by the White House, those espoused by the White House. So American taxpayers are complaining, and they express themselves at the ballot box. I mean, $36 trillion in debt and counting. And according to polls, majority of Americans are not in favor of government funding of continuous wars abroad, and getting a peace deal will very much help in this direction. So helping cut the deficits in the American national budgets, something what sort of a priority. Even the blowing up of the Nord Stream pipeline, whoever was behind it was against European interest, and in terms of getting cheap and reliable energy for Europe, right? But it was in the interests of the United States in providing more expensive substitutes to the Russian supply. So Trump's 180 degrees pivot from funding continuous war in Ukraine should have been anticipated as he campaigned and got elected on this. So Europe of the future has to forge its own path, security-wise, defense-wise. They have to build up their own defense industry. The European military industrial complex needs to get the right amount of investment to win Europe of its independence on the United States military industrial complex. They also need to forge their own strategic partnerships with Russia and China. Obviously, Russia, like I said last episode, has become the beautiful bride, because President Trump will not keep. We want to keep Russia away from China as far as possible. Since obviously the United States cannot go toe to toe with the China-Russia combination, especially militarily. So the immigration crisis and all the effects, of the Russia and Ukraine war are majorly being borne by Europe and Europeans, and voters have shown that displeasure in elections across Europe. And in another development, Gavin Newsom on the California of the governor of California, rather, the charismatic governor of California, Jen Shapiro's podcasts. Gavin Newsom, someone who always likes to go to the lion's den, the opposition media, so to speak. He usually goes on Fox, and is always articulate about his positions, and he's such a charismatic personality, and his oratory is not in doubt. So there's no secret about his plans to run for president, and that is a potential matchup against, of course, Vance, Vice President Katie Vance. And you see that there's a lot of focus on Vance because most people believe that he's the successor to the MAGA throne, and he's been prepared to take over from Donald Trump, at least contesting the presidency. And you see that has been echoed on holidays, and there's a lot of press on him, unlike some other previous vice presidents. And talking about podcasts too, I think Michelle Obama also announced a podcast with our brother, with her sibling. So we'll also be looking forward to that. So Gavin Newsom's pivoting to the media on cultural issues, presenting like he was never woke, despite referring to Latinos then at Latinx at the time. I mean, that cultural shift, I think, is occasioned by Trump's win. Even AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the popular squad member, called that not all the squad members made it past even the primary stage, and that they did not have a 100% return to the House of Representatives, to the United States House of Representatives, and she also removed those contentious pronouns from her bio. Okay, so I recently she also tried to get a leadership position, and trying to become a ranking member of the oversight committee, but her party wasn't ready for her leadership. So Gavin Newsom's shift is quite interesting, especially in the context of Los Angeles hosting the Summer Olympics in 2028, and the parody of the Leonardo da Vinci's Last Opera, in the display by drag queens and transgender persons at the opening ceremony of the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris. It's something that has to be considered. So kindly recall last year during the United States presidential elections, presidential campaign, when we were sort of preparing you for eventualities should either of the Harris-Walz or Trump advance tickets prevail. So we gave extensive geopolitical implications, and trust me when I say that most of the things happening now on the global polity were things that we already brought to the attention of our listeners and our clients long before this time. Right? So that the cultural effects of either tickets prevailing on the Los Angeles Olympics were discussed, and we understood that the Harris-Walz tickets prevailing would actually reinforce the woke agenda, and having a biological male, as long as there's transgender female, participate in female sports and things like that will be encouraged. And if as it we having now the Trump Vance ticket prevailing, of course that's we're going to have a shift to conservatism, and there'll be a frown at there'll be a pushback on those woke values, those woke ideologies. Okay, so Gavin Newsom went on Ben Shapiro and talked about the unfairness of having biological men compete in women's sports, and they snap up the prizes, the scholarships, the money, and so talks about that unfairness. And I believe that it's something more of common sense. And the Riley Gaines, the activists who are working to stop the participation of biological men in women's sports, we have a campaign gain quite some traction in these times. So Gavin Newsom, pivoting to the middle on this issue, sends a clear signal that liberal California will pander to President Trump's cultural inclinations, that California will adopt common sense in the approach to Los Angeles Summer Olympics in 2028. So issues like the one that happened in the Paris Summer Olympics last year, the opening ceremony, have the ability to impact the numbers for our stakeholders, and because there was a massive boycott of the games by Christians around the world because of what was termed insensitive and disrespectful to Christians around the world. And you can recall that I advanced a basis, a reason why the French local organizing committee, the LOC, permitted that display during the opening ceremony. I talked about carrying water for the left and needing the political coalition with them to ensure that Marine Le Pen's right to wing, the charge, or she calls herself a transcentrist anyway. All right, so that and a lot of common sense is in the center, so to speak, and so that their charge is subdued. So Macron actually pandered to the left. So parliamentary elections was also the results of parliamentary elections also enforced this fear, justified that fear, because even France and Germany, were under threat, and with of course that has been made manifest in Germany this year with the imminent change of government, and Friedrich Merz is the incoming German Chancellor. So for brands seeking optimum impact from the sponsorship of sports business events, and it's important to consider, it's an important factor to consider when they're selecting and negotiating. All right. So brands we want maximum impact on their numbers, their customer base, visibility, and turnover. Because aside individuals who engage in professional sport and who are rewarded for their work financially, and like as exemplified in the Cristiano Ronaldo earning enormous income from his work, and of course endorsements and rights. So we also have sports organizations and franchises making money from broadcast rights and sponsorship deals, and advertising, ticket sales, merchandise sales, players transfers, and so on. So and we also know that the Dallas Cowboys of the NFL in the US is still the most valuable franchise. All right. So brands are engaged in sports sponsorship, profit from increased brand awareness and loyalty. So leading to increased visibility and patronage and market share and revenue and the numbers, So and we have examples like Vivo, who actually had such a massive impact on his numbers from its sponsorship of the FIFA World Cup in 2022 in Qatar. So so sports business events like the LA Olympics coming up, and of course the FIFA World Cup being co-hosted. Actually a melting point for sports, for marketing, for economic opportunities, and actually a veritable tool of international diplomacy. It can be used to project the image of the host nation positively, and I expect the United States to actually maximize that. So, and can use by the host nations to endear itself to other nations, facilitate rewarding international relations and trade, and attract foreign direct investments. So to also occasion improvement in infrastructure, because they'll need to upgrade infrastructure and to be able to meet up with the pressure and the demand during the events, the demand occasioned by the influx of foreigners, and also impact positively on the tourism sector, creating that domino effect on other sectors of the economy. So brands also of course sponsor these events in exchange for visibility with the sports audience. Yes, let us draw the curtain on today's episode, and next time, as we continue to follow the dynamics of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, as well as the Middle East situation. Of course, reports in Syria, where reports of provocational killings has led to government's crackdown on minorities, Christians, and forces loyal to the ousted Bashar al-Assad. So we'll also be looking at a potential geopolitical conflict, so to speak, in China's ambitions to reunify Taiwan with mainland China. All right. And next quarter, please, we will be focusing on the national economy and the geopolitical economy. Particularly the banking sector. We're looking at Ethiopia, which has been largely regulated and largely restricted, the banking sector in Ethiopia. So, and it's recently opened up with the banking proclamation in December 2024. So, we'll be looking forward to that next quarter. So, please do remember that Armor Gateway is ready to help and support your organizations to work optimally, creating frameworks and processes for optimization of resources and attainment of goals. You can contact us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram at Armorgate. You can also visit our website at www.thearmorgate.org. Our email is contact@thearmorgate.org. I hope that the time we've spent together has been impactful, and I assure you that from my own end, it's been a pleasure. Until I come up on your devices again, it's bye for now. God bless.